Hello everyone, Big Seven here, back for another SuperCoach video, and today is the day where I reveal my team. I need to do a bit of housekeeping, so in the meantime, I've got a league code up in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Feel free to join that. The team that I show you today might not be the same team that I roll with into round one. I expect that it will be fairly similar though. The main thing is that the rookies, and we've got a decent indication on who's in the mix, but we don't know who will be named. And I guess that brings me into my second point, my overall philosophy this year. And I really want to try and cut back on the amount of rookies that I have to field and even pick this year. There's the introduction of the sub rule, which might be a killer to some of the rookie scoring. And I also think we've got the game's changed from having to go from a guns and rookies approach to being more of a mid-priced based approach. And I also see a lot of potential in the some of the mid prices that we have this year. Some of them moving into good roles, some of them progressing naturally. So I'm a lot more bullish on mid prices this year, and I think the game has adapted where you need to be going for the mid prices, targeting value, targeting underpriced premiums, and yeah. Without any further ado, let's get straight into the side. So I'm going to start at the ruck position because for me, rucks are probably the most important position on the field. In seasons past, we've had Gawn and Grundy that you can plug in pretty easily. But now with both of them playing at the same side, don't like either of them. So we need to go for a value-based approach. The first player I'm picking is Sean Darcy. 102 last year, year before averaged 118. Luke Jackson moves across from Melbourne to Fremantle. I still expect Sean Darcy to get the bulk of the ruck time. And as you can see from the player that's at the top of averages from last year, Luke Jackson isn't a huge barrier to players scoring well. Sean Darcy, I think he can go somewhere between 110 and 120. I think he'll be a top 2 or 3 ruck, locking him in at ruck 1. And the other player that definitely represents value is Rowan Marshall. He's going to benefit from the retirement of Paddy Ryder, who was eating into his ruck time. Now Marshall will be essentially the sole ruck. Priced at a 92 average, he will definitely improve on that. And I'm not sure if he'll be a top 3 or 4 ruck. Maybe you'll have to move him up with a luxury trade later on in the season. But Rowan Marshall, definitely underpriced. I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit 110 this year. The third ruck is a bit more difficult. You've got Asava Radaglia, who's 174k. I think it's a little bit too much to spend on a ruck 3, although if I do have the funds, then I'll be tempted to do it. Samson Ryan, 123k. I would pick him. I'm just not sure if he's going to get named or not. So, in the meantime, I have Nicholas Madden, who would be a loophole option. He's the only 102k player that is both a ruck and a forward, so that allows for flexibility between lines, and GWS play a number of late games, so he's a perfect choice if you want to run a loophole at that position. Next, I look at forwards, and there aren't that many strong rookies I feel in the forward line. And there's also a number of premiums that I feel are underpriced going into the season. So this is a line where I'm looking to go deep with options. First one, Josh Dunkley moves across from the Western Bulldogs, but more importantly, he won't play forward anymore. He had to play a large percentage of forward at the Dogs to accommodate their stellar midfield. And moving across to Brisbane, he'll be mostly playing midfield there. 108 average, he can go 120. Don't overthink it, just lock him in. The other player that is set to benefit from more midfield time from departing his club is Tim Taranto. Again, he was at GWS, a number of star midfielders, which meant for a lot of games, Taranto was being parked in the forward line. He has averaged, I think, 108 in the past, moves to a side that is desperate for midfielders. I wouldn't overthink it. I think Taranto can go 105 plus, lock him in. Third player I've got is Connor Rozee. The average from last year is a bit deceptive. Played his first 5 or 6 games in the forward line. Once he moved into that midfield role, was scoring well, and no reason why that shouldn't continue going into this season. So again, another player that's underpriced and happy to slot him in. The fourth player is someone that kind of burst onto the radar late in pre-season. That's Errol Goulden, and I think the doubt over him is he scored really well in preseason, 45 touches and 3 goals. He did that without Callum Mills on the side, but I think that kind of performance you cannot ignore as a coaching staff. He needs to play at least half of the game in midfield, in my opinion. And we've seen in the past, he averaged 85 last year in his second year of football, getting essentially no centre bounces. So even if he gets a small percentage, I could see him bumping 100. With a large percentage, he could go 110 plus. He's such a talented kid, Errol, and love watching him play. The fifth player I've got is definitely a bit sketchy, but that is Tanner Bruhn. Only in 10% of sides, and he racked it up in the juniors, then got drafted by GWS, who I mentioned, deep midfielders. He basically got no time in the midfield, and it just seemed like a match gone wrong, essentially. I've watched both of his preseason games, and he looks a different player. The I'm not sure how Geelong's midfield rotations look, but I think Bruhn has to be a decent part of that. Maybe he only gets 50, 60%, but still, I really liked how he looked in both of those practice games. He looked like a natural midfielder. He was making tackles. He was running to the right space to get the ball. And I honestly think he can go 90 plus this year. I think in order to be successful, he'd probably need to go 85. But I can see Tanner Bruhn doing that. I can see the talent that was kind of being stifled by GWS and the lack of midfield time. And he's someone I'm going to back to break out in a big way going into his third season. The last player on field I have is Sam Flanders. Another one that could be a bit sketchy, but another player that I watched in preseason and I really liked the way he played. I think he played like a half forward wing kind of role. I think he will probably do the same going into the season. So the role maybe isn't an ideal one. I mean, generally we're trying to look for centre bounce midfielders, but he's only 256k, and I don't think the half forward role is a death sentence. He's someone that will get high up the ground and involved. And yeah, I think he's still capable of going like a 75, 80 in that role. And for 256k, I think that will be enough. And also someone that I don't have any doubts fielding. So Flanders at F6 for me. And then the bench, these are both going to be rookies. The first one is Fergus Green. He's been in the VFL system for a while, done well there. I don't think his spot is in any doubt at Hawthorn. In a side that's expected to be bottom 4, I don't really have any confidence fielding him. But I think he will have a couple of spike games. I think he's capable of hitting 300k. And with the good job security, someone I think he can just lock in. The other forward I have is Alwyn Davey. Spot's probably a little bit less secure, but he did look lively in the practice match. And probably the scoring potential isn't as high as Fergus Green as well. But he's going to be sitting on my bench for the entire season, or not the entire season, until I upgrade him. And you might notice with my forward line that out of the 6 players on field, they all have midfield DPP. That'll come in handy later on. Into the defense. And I'm going for a 2 premium defender structure at the moment. James Sicily is the first one I have. And it's really a toss-up between the other 3. I'm looking between Dawson and Doherty. I've got Dawson ahead slightly at the moment. It's very slight. Doherty Dawson for me is splitting hairs. If I heard something about Dawson having a bruised shoulder going into the season, I would probably switch to Doherty. That's how tight it is. I think they're both outstanding options. And I have Sicily over both of them. If I needed that 20K, I would definitely do Sicily down to Doherty. I guess I like Sicily a little bit more than the other 2 because I think he has 2 kind of forms of upside. His team's going to be worse, so I think the ball will be down in defense a lot more for the Hawks. And also, he's still relatively young and second year back from an ACL. So I think Sicily, I have him pegged as my D1 at the moment for the year. And then Dawson and Doherty. Doherty expected to get some midfield time and did score well in that role last year. And then Dawson, he's someone that Adelaide just absolutely feed the ball through. He's still relatively young as well. So for me, those 2 are a toss-up. I might even start all 3 just depending on how the structure works out. The player I've currently got at D3, I think everyone's got him, and it is... I'm just going to have to type that in. Elliot Yeo. At 337K, he has the potential to probably be a keeper in defense, all things going right. He has a really shoddy injury history, which could deter some people. But I think a player with his scoring potential, you can't ignore. If he even manages to go through the first 6-7 games uninjured, he'll make 150K, I think, and I don't think there's any coming back from that. So Elliot Yeo, I think he's just too cheap to ignore, despite all of the injuries he has had over his recent history. The player I have at D4, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to move into the rookies I have. I'll leave D4 a bit of a secret at the moment because that's probably the last position on the field that I'm filling out. And I'm just trying to fill it out kind of the way that I've constructed it. Because I think, it's a bit like a cake. You got to put the right ingredients in the right order. So the player I have at D5, that would be Jinby. Also got McKenna. Got Constable. And I have Wilmot. So I kind of speed through these guys. Jinby, he looks locked for round 1. Might get some midfield time as well. 171K, it's a bit of a price to pay up, but I'm paying up for the job security, and I think he should score okay as well. Connor McKenna lost to the game for, I think it was a couple of years. Now he comes back, recruited by Brisbane. I think he will play round 1, and I think he'll play round 1, and he should score okay if he plays. Actually going to remove Constable. I've got Cowan there, actually. I think there's 2 players competing for one spot at Carlton. One of them is Cowan. One of them's Chincotta. I think I'm going to pick whichever one of them is named round 1 and hope that they hold the spot. I think Chincotta is more likely to score well, but it sounds like Cowan is the one that is more likely to be in the side. And look, if he's named, I'm just going to back him to hold his spot. If he does at 117K, he will make cash. And then Darcy Wilmot, his spot is a little bit more shaky. I'm not sure if he's best 22 or not. I'll pick him if he's named, but He's someone that could potentially be changed on the Thursday. And now finally into the mids, I have at midfield one, I've got the Bont, 116 average. He's someone that will benefit from Josh Dunkley's departure. I think he can push to be a top 3 mid. So someone that's a little bit underpriced for mine. I like the Bont. The second player who I think is definitely underpriced, that's Tom Green. Again, another player that benefits from departures. I've got Dunkley and Taranto in the forward line who were the departees, moving to bigger roles. And in my midfield, I've got Bontempelli and Green who are the benefit of departures. So it's pretty interesting to see how, I guess, 2 off-season moves result in 4 different 4 players coming into my Supercoach side. Tom Green averaged 112 under Leon Cameron last year when he was playing in that midfield role. Then Leon got sacked. Things seemed to go wrong for Tom Green, lost that role a bit, and didn't finish the season off well. So I'm going to back Tom Green to go back to that Leon Cameron start of last year form. GWS also with a decent fixture run at the start of the year. So Tom Green, I think he's someone that's underpriced and putting him in the side at the moment. And now the fun begins. It's time to start picking the mid prices. So the first one I have is Jacob Hopper. Again, another player that's moved to a new club, ex-GWS, now at the Tigers, coming back from a knee injury. So the slight concern is that he comes back a bit slow. But I don't think he looked too bad in the practice match against Melbourne. Obviously, a good midfield. And he is someone that feels a need for Richmond as well. They needed that in and under hard-nosed midfielder. Hopper will get a bunch of contested ball. I think he can go somewhere between 90 and 100. At that price range is acceptable to me. Next player I have is James Worpel. And he's a very interesting player. In his second season of football, won the BNF at Hawthorn with a 95 Supercoach average, and his career has definitely dipped since then. But with the departures of Tom Mitchell and Jago O'Meara, James Worpel needs to make the most of this opportunity, and I think with bulk CBAs, he will manage to do that. He is a bit of a butcher with the ball, but playing in that midfield role, I think he's someone that will rack up between 25, 30 touches a game. Hopefully doesn't have any of his poor games that we've seen in seasons past. But I have him. I've got him pegged as a 90 to 100 average. I think he can get back to his best in a Hawthorn midfield role that's in a Hawthorn midfield room that really is quite bare at the moment. Next player I have. Who do I have here? So yeah, I'll go through the rookies I've got now. Toby McLean. Phillips. Oscar Baker. Who else do I have? I have Constable in my midfield. There's a couple that I'm missing. I definitely should have taken a screenshot or something of how my team was before. So, Toby McLean, 178k, maybe a little bit overpriced. He's going to be playing predominantly forward, but I think he can score well enough in that role. We saw in the final series last year, he scored 100 in the same role. I'm backing him to score 60 to 65, Just hoping that the job security is good enough for him. How could I forget the main man, Will Ashcroft? He looked amazing, and in the practice game, number one draft pick, 76% owned. That really says it all. Will Phillips, former number two pick, a little bit scared about him. Didn't look that great in the practice game, but it was against the Dogs midfield, and those kind of open games definitely suit the Dogs more. I think Phillips will be okay. I'm going to have him on my bench at this stage. Oscar Baker looked like he took the most of his opportunity. I don't think he was best 22 before that practice game, but I think he will be now. And Charlie Constable, someone I'm a little bit scared about, but I think he will score okay if he plays. There's a few players to come back in that Gold Coast defense. Lockie Weller, Brandon Ellis, does he play a wing or does he play a defense role? And also Will Powell. But they've also got, I think there's probably, out of these four players, I think two of them that'll end up in the role. And that's Ben Long, Charlie Constable, Jai Farah, and Darcy McPherson. And I don't think McPherson will be the one that ends up in the role. So I think I'd probably pencil in two out of Farah, Constable, and Ben Long to play. And I guess I'm just hoping that Constable is the one that locks down the role before Weller and Powell come back. But there's also a chance that Powell plays round one and Constable isn't even inside. So I'll save it as this for now. There's definitely a midfield rookie I'm missing. Or is it a mid-pricer? Oh, it's a rookie. So I guess this kind of structure is how I'm looking at going into the season. I thought I had another midfield rookie. Maybe I didn't. Oh yeah, Cam McKenzie. How could I forget about him? He was another player that looked amazing in the practice match that Hawthorn played. The second one in particular. I think, and again, Hawthorn's midfield room is pretty bare at the moment. So I think Cam McKenzie, he's someone that should be playing from round one onwards. And yeah, I'm confident putting him on field. And so that pretty much leaves me a mil to fill out two spots. And these are the two spots that are probably the most variable in my side. I did consider going a 500k defender in Dacos and a 500k mid, but I don't really like the mids around that price range. The other option I considered was putting Doherty in defense, and that would have given me room for another mid-pricer. I might still go down that route. I'm considering putting Fife in that spot. Fife is definitely someone that interests me because I think it depends how deep you think about it. And I guess it's your level one thinking where it's like, yeah, Fife has won a Brownlow and he's a great player. You just lock him in. I guess the second level of thinking is Fife was great in the past, but now he's going to be perched down in the forward line, and that's a huge risk. And then I guess the third level of thinking where I'm kind of thinking is that, yes, Fife will be a forward line and probably parked key forward, but Fremantle have a really good fixture list that Fife could definitely capitalise on. So I could potentially be swayed into going Doherty and Fife in those last two positions. At the moment, though, I've got Liam Jones, and he's someone I'm a bit scared about in terms of scoring potential. His best season, he averaged 70, and he's 32 now as well. He's someone that will take intercept marks, but I do wonder if the price is a bit inflated. still, even if you average like a 60 and you're paying for the job security, I can probably get around it. I think out of the Dogs defenders, Crozier is actually the cheaper one that probably I trust a bit more from a scoring potential side of things. But for me, I think he's someone that could potentially see the subvest. So I've got Liam Jones in there for now, and that leaves me a chunk of money, and it also means that I can bring in a captain option, and that is the man by the name of Clayton Oliver. And he's someone that the perception around him in preseason probably shifted off him a bit because he was experimented as a defender in the practice match. I still expect him to play in midfield for the majority of the time. I'm hoping that that was only Simon Goodwin throwing the magnets around for a practice match. If it happens during the season, as a Melbourne supporter, I will lose my mind because you need to have the best. He's probably one of the best, if not the best, clearance player in the comp. And starting him at halfback is just, I think it's lunacy in my opinion. But it could happen. I mean, Goodwin has signed Grundy, so it's shown that he's not afraid to play players outside of their best positions. He's done it with Petraka in the past. Even Oliver in the past has played forward line. So for me, I've got Oliver for now. I'd be tempted to switch him to Laird. I think whichever one of these players you pick, you're probably slightly overpaying for. I mean, they are priced pretty high at 700k. I guess the trade-off for that is that they're going to be hard to trade in. They probably won't dip below, I would say, 640k. So if you don't start them, you need to find a way to get them in eventually. But also the trade-off is that if you start with one of Laird or Oliver, they will be really good captaincy options. So I'll save that. And yeah, that's what the team looks like now. So let me know what you think in the comments. Obviously, could be subject to change based on the Thursday teams. And I will be uploading my next video at the conclusion of round 1, which will be my team, kind of my real team reveal plus review. So I look forward to seeing you that. Best of luck for this season going forward, and I'll see you for the next video.